Guys, coming against me another movie for guys, and yes, I am back in my setting like I told you guys. I would be back by tonight, and I am back in my setting. I'm back here. I was in, if you guys didn't see my last review, I was in a hotel room for Washington D.C., which was really nice, but it was only like a day trip, so I'm back here, and in that time, I watched two movies, which is really cool, and I wasn't able to review them, but now I can, so let's get into them. This will be review 9. It should be review 11. I know it's the 11th, but it should be review 11, but I will catch up tomorrow. I'm planning on watching two movies tomorrow. Hopefully all goes well, and I can watch two movies. If not, I'll just fix that over the weekend. We'll see. But that movie is a movie that I was definitely looking forward to. I will be continuing the Frankenstein movies. As I said, I am reviewing 3 of the Frankenstein movies, none of the other ones. I'm only reviewing 3 of them. But this movie is a movie that I've really been looking forward to. I've heard that it's better than the first one. Many people say it's better, and I was definitely interested in seeing how the movie would be. And that is the 1935 horror classic Bride of Frankenstein. Now, Bride of Frankenstein, of course, it does come in this set, like I said. It was a movie that I was definitely looking forward to, mainly because I really love the first Frankenstein. I think it's an amazing movie. And I was really wondering, how is this going to top the first one? The first one was so good, and I was really wondering how this was going to top it. And does Bride of Frankenstein top it? Abso-fucking-lutely it does. I mean, Bride of Frankenstein is an amazing movie. It is probably one of my favorite movies of all time, honestly. It is just the bit better than Frankenstein. Probably just a smidge, honestly. It's just a bit better. It's an amazing movie. It adds so much more to it, and I really do love everything about Bride of Frankenstein. Now, let's get to the plot of Bride of Frankenstein, which isn't as complex, as the next movie we're reviewing. Then, the next movie is very complex. The one we're reviewing, the plot is very in-depth, but basically, the plot of Bride of Frankenstein is that, as we know, at the end of Frankenstein, Henry Frankenstein supposedly died, but we find out in this movie that he did not die. Instead, he is very upset about what's happened with, his monster turning against him, and he basically abandons all plans to create life because he realizes that this is probably a very risky thing that he's doing, that it's just not going to be a very good thing in the long run. He pretty much doesn't plan on, really doing anything with life and doesn't really want to get involved with that anymore. However, one day he is approached by this doctor, Dr. Pretorius, who basically gives him a proposition that tells him that the monster is still out there, and since the monster is still out there, the monster wants a mate, and they're going to create a mate for the monster, and that basically is the plot of Bride of Frankenstein, which I think is a really great plot, but there's a lot more to this movie than that, that I definitely really enjoyed. First of all, let's get to the acting in this movie. The acting from everyone is, I think, just a bit better than the first one. Like I said, it is just, like I said, a bit better. But especially Boris Karloff as the monster, who I said was amazing in the first one. He's even better in this one, because you don't just see the monster as a monster in this one. The first movie, they gave you about, I'd say, 20 minutes to really see this monster and really see how he was. This movie gives you almost the whole movie. Basically, he's the main character. Even though Henry Frankenstein is the only human in this movie, the monster is essentially the main character in this. I mean, we basically follow him throughout most of the movie, and his plot line is very intriguing because, as you can tell, the whole movie, he just kind of wants to be treated like a normal person. He's tired of people, getting scared of him, and he knows that he has to do some things in order to survive, because obviously he wants to survive, and his main mission in this movie is to survive. He wants to survive, he wants to be treated normally, and you really see him that way, and he really did a great job in this movie portraying the monster that way, and it's really interesting the way they get you to feel for the monster. There are some incredible scenes with him. He really portrayed it perfectly, and something I really do love about Boris Karloff is that he often said that he himself is a monster, and that what we see in the movie, that's kind of how he feels about himself, because, he's a very tall guy, and of course, James Whale, the director, approached him because he thought he looked like, a monster, and Boris Karloff always said that he was a monster. In fact, in the movie, they say the monster himself, Boris Karloff, which I think is pretty funny, the way they did that, in the opening credits they say that, but I think he was incredible in the movie. Boris Karloff is probably one of the legends, I think, of, is definitely one of the greatest horror actors of all time. He really portrayed the monster perfectly, and I thought he was incredible. As was Colin Clive. Colin Clive was just as great in the first one. I think he was even better in this one, though, because the thing I love about Henry Frankenstein in this one is just how down on his luck he is. I mean, the second that he realizes that the monster is still out there and that something bad is happening, you see how bad he feels. He has this great great speech in the movie about how much it meant him to create life and all the things he could have done and how he just feels so bad about it. You know, he thought this was going to go so well. He thought he was doing a really great thing, and obviously it didn't go well for him. You can understand why he feels as bad as he does, and I think Colin Clive really portrayed that perfectly. I know some people might make fun of the fact that, you know, he does get pulled back in to do it, but I kind of think it's his obsession. It's something that he's wanted to do. It's a goal that he's had, and it did not go well the first time, so he's thinking maybe this will go right the second time. That's really what I think is going on, because even when his wife tells him, you know, don't do this, he still wants to do it, mainly because I think that's just what he wants to do. That's his passion and his goal in life. We all have a goal that we have, and Henry Frankenstein's is for this experiment to go right, and he really wants that to go well. He really did an amazing job in the movie. I thought he was just fantastic. But who gets even more to do in this movie is Valerie Hobson as Elizabeth. Holy shit, she was amazing in this movie. She was great in the first one, but this movie, she has so many incredible scenes. I mean, you see how much she cares for her husband and how much she wants things to go right for him, but when she knows what he's doing, what I like about it is that, again, like the first one, she does support him in what he's doing. She knows it's probably not going to go well, but she does support him because she loves him so much, and you see how much she cares about him, and the bond that they have is just very, very interesting. You think he'd listen to her, but he doesn't, because he just has this obsession, and she understands that, and I thought she did a very good job, and they both were amazing. A new character, of course, is Ernest Thesiner as Pretorius, who is fantastic in the movie. You can tell throughout the whole movie that this guy really is not to be trusted. He has a much deeper agenda. But what he also says to Henry, I think, is very fascinating. One of the best scenes in the movie is when he's showing him all these creations that he's made. And it's meant to be a funny scene, which I will talk about. The movie is a bit funnier than the first one. But it's meant to be a funny scene. But you do see what he's done. You know, he's like shrunk down these people. I mean, he's done some much more advanced experiments than Henry has, and that really is what pulls him back in. The bond that these two have is just very complex, and some people even say it's homoerotic. I wouldn't say that. I'd say Henry's relationship is with his creatures and his experiments. That really is his main component in life. Even though he has Elizabeth, I'd say mainly his main goal is for these experiments, and that's really what he wants to do, and that's why he's so attached to them, because that's just what he wants to do in life. But I would say that Pretorius is definitely a very fascinating character, the way he's able to pull Henry back in like that. I mean, nobody can do that except him, and the way he does that is incredible, from one scientist to another scientist, and he did an amazing job. He really was great. He was also very menacing in the role, and really did a fantastic job of role. Everyone was great in this movie. I really think everyone gave an amazing performance, and also, like the first one, this movie does have a minor character that you never forget. The first one, it was the character of the little girl. I can't remember her name right now, but it was her. And in this one, it is the Hermit. O.P. Heggie as Hermit, who by far has one of the best scenes in this movie. I mean, his scene with the monster is very touching, actually. It's a very touching scene. I mean, it really it makes you feel for this monster. I mean, the monster in this scene is starting to learn how to talk. He's starting to learn what certain objects are. Things that, and the whole time you're thinking, this is stuff that Henry wanted to teach him, but he wasn't able to. But now that the monster is out of his element on his own, and he's learning this stuff on his own, it's really interesting to watch, and it's one of the best scenes in the movie by far that I absolutely love, and I think this guy was just great playing this Hermit. Even when the Hermit discovers that Frankenstein is a monster, even when he discovers that this is a monster, I'm not gonna call him Frankenstein. Even when he discovers that the monster, is not human, even when he realizes that, he doesn't care, because he's bonded well with him and he sees his intentions. That's something I thought was very well done, and I definitely really love that. And I thought he was incredible in the movie. Definitely, really one of the best performances from both these movies. Honestly, he was great. And I did see how Young Frankenstein borrowed that from this movie as well. Now, the directing by James Whale, I thought was great, because I watched the documentary on this. Not many people, most people say that the sequel does not surpass the original, but you can tell that James Whale did everything in his power to surpass the original. I mean, he really, really does, because while this movie is dark, it is a horror, it's also a lot of fun. I mean, there's some really fun scenes in just this movie alone. It's really fun to see the monster go out and just attack. I mean, it's not exactly fun, but there are some really funny scenes in the movie, like the scene where Pretorius is showing Frankenstein, all these monsters he's created. It's very darkly, subtly funny. It honestly is. It's meant to be funny, but it's very dark as well, and it's very interesting the way he did that, the way he added those dark humor in there. But he also had so much emotion in this, and the movie has so much to say about life and the importance of it and creations, and it's very interesting overall. His directing was perfect, and I really think he did an amazing job. The screenplay, however, I think is even better than the first one, because this is not exactly based off of a book. The first one was based off a book. This one really isn't. It does have a little bit in there from Mary Shelley. In fact, the movie actually has an introduction from someone playing Mary Shelley, which I think is pretty cool the way they did that. It's I believe it's supposed to be her two brothers, I think. Two brothers, I think, are the ones. No, it's her brother and this other guy, Byron. They're basically praising her for her work, and they say, oh, well, that was a great story. And she's like, oh, that's not the end of the story. And then basically we start the movie. I think this was really cool because it showed us that Mary Shelley did have more to the story, and that this was in that story. And I think that's really cool the way they handled that. Definitely, I really, really love that. And it really seems like this is all being recounted by Mary Shelley. And I don't know if Mary Shelley ever approved to the rights. I don't even know if she was alive at the time. I think she was. I don't know if she ever approved to the rights of this movie, the rights of her book. But I think it does show that, this is based off a book and this isn't something original. But they did add some original stuff in there, which I really did love. The thing I think works so well in the screenplay, though, is that this movie is a lot less of just Henry Frankenstein creating the monster. That's all gone. We know how this is gonna go. We don't need all that setup, and there is a lot of setup in this movie, but it's a lot more of just kind of seeing what's going to happen. You don't know if Henry Frankenstein is actually going to do this. When he's pulled back in by Pretorius, you don't know what he's going to do. And that's something I thought was definitely really well done. But what I found to be even more well done is what they do with the monster in this film, because they make you care for him so much, and they make you see him as a human, and they make you see him as someone who truly does care. You see, by the end of the movie especially, you start to see, what is he? Is he good? Is he bad? He's kind of in between that in the movie. I mean, in the movie, he's kind of starting to think that he might be a monster. In the beginning of the movie, when we first see him, he does some things that you could classify him as a monster. But I think he realizes that he's not a monster. That's something I thought was definitely really good, and I really enjoyed that as well. But also, I said there is some very good humor in there that I also really loved, and I thought was very good. And the movie also had a lot to say about death, and it also has a lot to say about, birth and the importance of, I think, just being human overall, and how someone who's not human could still be human. I think it's a very complex message, but it's true. If you're human, you could still, even if you're not human, you could still be human. Human is a quality. That's something that you have to have, and that's something that I think the monster does have. He does have a backbone. He does understand what he's doing, and that's something that I thought they portrayed very, very well, and I really like that. Overall the screenplay was perfect. I really loved it, and I think it's a fantastic screenplay. The cinematography is even better in this one. I mean, the makeup is it's extraordinary the way they did this. I mean, he looks dead. Boris Karloff looks dead. It doesn't look just like a monster, it doesn't look like a guy in a makeup. He looks dead, and it's really fascinating the way they do that, and I really enjoyed the laboratory looks amazing. The bride looked great. Which, by the way, guys, the bride only has about 3 minutes of screen time this entire movie, because the whole movie is setting up creating that bride. And I'm going to talk about the final scene, because I think it really encompasses everything the movie's trying to say. I will talk about that, but I think the cinematography was even better. Something this movie had that the first film didn't was a score, and oh my god, is it beautiful. And I didn't realize how good the score was till the very ending. The whole movie, the score is great, but I think the score is best in the final scene. That final score is just perfect. It symbolizes exactly what we need. It gives us the emotion that we need, and I definitely really, really love the score, I have to say. And this was a time when they were starting to add scores to movies. 1931, they were still trying to experiment with things, but 1935, they had established that you can add scores, and I thought that was perfect. I love the score, and it really was great, I have to say. I thought the score was amazing, honestly. It was a great score. The ending as well, again, the movie is short. It's only 75 minutes, and it honestly needed to be. It went by so fast for me, and some people say you can watch this directly with the first one. I'd say, yeah, you do that, but honestly, I think it works out as its own movie, because You don't have to, you have to watch the first one in order to get this one, but I think it also works as its own movie because of just the kind of movie it is. It's a much more character-driven movie than the first one was. The first one is more of just setting up the story, and it's all a bunch of exposition and kind of getting to that point. This very much feels like, okay, that was the prologue, here's the actual story, and how it all plays out, and that was something I really loved, and I definitely think was very, very well handled. And it really went by very fast for me. It's only 75 minutes, and it went by just like that, honestly. It's a movie that you start it, and it feels like it's over, just because of how fast it is, and I love that. But it's also very slow-paced, definitely. But it's slow-paced to the sense where it's slow-paced, but it's you know, it's very slow-moving, but it's a short movie, and I understand why they did that, because obviously it had a lot of story to tell, and something I liked as well is that the movie didn't become too convoluted. You know, you think that there are a bunch of characters that are gonna be a huge part of the movie, but they weren't, they didn't play a huge part, and I thought overall they were very good. Oh, also, someone else I did not talk about that I really do want to talk about is Uno O'Connor as Minnie was also very, very good in this movie. I thought she did a very good job. She's the first one that sees that the monster's still alive, and people start to not believe her, but she did a very good job. She was very humane, and I definitely really loved her performance as well. But I think my favorite part of this movie by far is the final scene of this movie. I personally think the final scene in this movie is not only one of the best final scenes, you know, of these two movies, but also I think one of the finest final scenes in film history, because it perfectly sums up what this movie is trying to do. It's perfect, honestly. And yes, we only get 3 minutes of the bride in this movie, but that's what we needed. The purpose of the bride, I don't think was just to create a bride for Frankenstein. The purpose of the bride was to see where, you know, where the monster is going to go. Is he going to be a monster, or is he going to be a good person? And the second that he realizes, and these are spoilers now if you guys haven't seen the movie, but the second he realizes that the bride is not interested in him, and that the bride is scared of him, and that she even seems kind of evil, he does not want her to live, and he doesn't want Pretorius to live either, because of course he created her, but also because he pulled Henry back into this life. And the line where he says, "You go and live," I think it's kind of showing that he understands that Henry Frankenstein is a good man. He's not a bad person, and he knows that Dr. Pretorius is not a good person. He's pulled Henry back in this, and he wants Henry to live his life. He wants him to get over this. He wants him, and, you know, regardless of if it works or not, he wants Henry and Elizabeth to live their life. He wants them to be like, just forget about me. You don't have to worry about me anymore, because, you know, a lot of the movie is Henry kind of making up for what he did with the monster, and think that's going to work out with Elizabeth, you know, with the bride. And I think that's just the monster saying, go live your life. Don't worry about me. You know, I know that you know, didn't work out with me, but don't worry about it. You know, you've created me. All is good there. You know, I forgive you for what's happened. And I think that's why he blows himself up, because he realizes that he was meant to be dead. He wasn't meant to live through this. And it's very sad, but I think it's perfect for the monster, because he's realizing that he can do this one heroic act that will just make him feel like he is a human and not just some monster, and not just someone that people view as this horrible person. He is a good person overall. Even though he's a monster, he is a good, even though he doesn't look like a good person, he is a good person. He has a backbone, he has humane emotions, and I think that final scene really encapsulates all of that, and I think that he just sold that perfectly in that final scene. The music in that scene was amazing. The way that scene goes is just perfect, because, of course, Henry doesn't know what this monster is going to do. He doesn't know if the monster is going to blow him up, and he doesn't even know if he should live. I think Henry Frankenstein in that scene was even contemplating the will to live at one point. I mean, he was going to stay there, and the monster's like, no, go and live, and that's something I thought was just very well done, and it's a very dark scene, but it works perfectly for this movie, and I absolutely love that. And it also showed there was a very ballsy move to kill the monster in this movie, and I think that's perfect. It doesn't make sense why there are other movies after this, because I think this is the perfect ending to the series overall, but I do think that it pretty much is the perfect ending to this movie, and I don't really think it could have ended better. And I know some people might complain that we only see the bride for 3 minutes, but that's really all we need to see of her. One, because Mary Shelley didn't write anything else, so I don't think they wanted to really mess with the source material and do something a bit out of their element and, you know, make people really upset that they gave all this, you know, exposition to a character that played, like, no part in the original novel. Two, I think it's just the bride, she's scared, and she's not like the monster. She, I think, was, you know, he can tell that she was kind of made out of evil, and that she was going to be evil, and he didn't want her to be evil. He wants her to be a good person, and he doesn't want to be seen as evil. And now that he knows that he's scared, his own bride, he's like, you know what, I'm not going to live anymore. I've scared too many people. I've done too many bad things, and that's why he does it. And I think that's an incredible final scene. It's one of the reasons why I love the movie as much as I do. It's dark subtext. It's very emotional subtext the way it does. Just the fact that this is a monster and they got you to care for him as much as they do really shows in this movie. It works perfectly, and that's why I love the movie as much as I do. And of course, Bride of Frankenstein absolutely gets a 5 out of 5 or an A+. It's one of the best sequels of all time, guys. It really is. It's one of the best sequels I've seen. It's the best movie for 31 Days of Horror by far, definitely. And I don't know how another movie is going to top it. It's going to be very hard to do that, but it is a film that if you want to watch a movie, a classic horror film, turn to this one, okay? Watch the first one. Of course, you have to watch the first one, then watch it. I'm pretty sure you guys know the story of Frankenstein, though. If you guys know the story of Frankenstein, just watch this one. Honestly, watch this movie as its own thing. It's perfect for that, and I think you will definitely really, really love it if you do that. But overall, guys, my review of Bride of Frankenstein. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Please let me know what you think of this movie. You have seen it. It is an incredible movie. If you haven't seen it, please check it out. And we'll see you guys next year, which will be for another 31 Days of Horror movie review, because I have one other movie that I did watch that I am going to review, and we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.